Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's Patreon video. This one in my latest series where I cover every episode of Star Trek the Animated Series. In this video I will cover episode 9, Once Upon a Planet, and episode 10, Mudd's Passion. So these two episodes both are like continuations or sort of sequels of stuff that the original series has done. And these two episodes are both continuations of storylines I did not like from the original series. And I think these are both sort of lesser versions of them. But anyway, let me first get into episode number 9, Once Upon a Planet. So yeah, this is a continuation of Shore Leave, an episode I did not like. I thought it was a bit silly. I just couldn't get on board with this sort of pre-holodeck thing. And in fact, it kind of, watching it now in modern times, it makes me think of it in terms of Westworld, because they actually say that these images or these, they think of something and the master computer creates robots for it. So they're actually like robot versions of these things. So it makes me think about Westworld. And I guess this episode in particular is kind of like Westworld because the computer like grows sentience and tries to sort of attack the humans or whatever. But I think it's doing this episode way too many favors to compare it to Westworld. This episode is nowhere near as good. I think it doesn't deserve that, personally. Really, in modern, like, I think because this is 60s, 70s for this, 60s for the original, they still think in terms of robots. Really, more modern times we think in terms of holograms, which is of course true of Next Generation and future Star Trek shows where they turn into the holodeck. So this seems like basically a precursor to the holodeck, or a poor man's holodeck. Although not really poor man's, because it can actually read your thoughts. And as they said in Shore Leave, they play that off as actually kind of dangerous, because things you think of would come to life and you have no idea. Now here they're portraying it as a pleasure planet, which is how they sort of implied at the ending of Shore Leave. And so they go to this planet thinking, oh, it's going to be a relaxing vacation because whatever we think of will automatically come true. And they start with the seeing the Alice and the rabbit, and Alice from Alice in Wonderland chasing the rabbit, and they're like, haha, there it is again. Hey, he, he. Anyway, one quick thing I gotta mention while I was watching this episode, I noticed that Spock said, when he talked about Alice Through the Looking Glass, he said that that was a favorite novel of his mother's. Now, I don't recall him saying this in the original series. Maybe he did in Shore Leave and I'm not remembering it. But if not, and it's just this episode, because this is something that's actually referenced in Star Trek Discovery. Because, of course, Spock's mother, Amanda, is also Michael Burnham's mother. And in season 1, they talk about how she used to read that book to Michael Burnham when she was a little kid, and so Michael Burnham was quoting it as an adult. And then Spock sort of, I think in season 2 when Spock met Michael Burnham, they sort of referenced it together. So that, if it's true that it wasn't the original series, just this episode, that means the Discovery was actually taking some from this episode, so it's the argument for the animated series being canon. But anyway, going off on a little tangent, I just thought that was pretty interesting. But the actual episode deals with, of course, yeah, they go to this planet and they think they're going to relax, but really, that sounds like dangerous to me. And they even say, like, oh, you better make sure to think happy thoughts because they come to life. But you can't really control what enters your mind. What if you have a nightmare? What if you just think, something reminds you of something that you hate and it just pops in your mind. You can't control it. And then this machine will make a robot of that and it will haunt you. So I don't really see this as a viable pleasure planet. It still seems dangerous. They try to present off, oh, it was only dangerous shortly because we didn't know what was going on. But even then, they had like World War II fighter planes like attacking them and stuff. Like, it seems like even if you do know what's going on, that's still a danger of happening. So I still reject the whole premise. And who else like knows about this planet? Like, Kirk and everyone talk about, like, in the machine itself talk like, oh, all these people come here, but who else goes there? And are they aware that this is a place? Because when Kirk went there in shore leave, there was no signs. There was no one to say, welcome to this pleasure planet. This is where your thoughts come to life. Kirk and the Starfleet are well aware of it now. Well, what about other people? They'll come there and they'll get killed. I don't know. I just think, I never liked this shore leave episode. And I think the whole premise, and it's particularly this episode, is ridiculous. So in this episode, the master, or whoever it was, the game master, whatever the fuck his name was, he dies, and the computer like takes over, and for some reason the computer thinks that the humans and the people in the Starfleet are just slaves to the Enterprise, which is an entity. And so he wants to take over the Enterprise and create his own computer there so he can travel the galaxy and meet other spaceships who he thinks are entities, because he thinks computers are automatically superior to humans. So, of course, humans are the slaves and computers rule the galaxy. And Kirk is like, no, computers don't rule the galaxy. Nobody rules anything. We all live, we cohabit. Which is not necessarily true, because computers are just there to serve the humans. So really, computers are their slave. But the difference is these computers aren't sentient the way this one is. But the whole way this computer thinks in terms of slavery and rule, like, I don't understand why it's having this premise anyway. So the plot can happen, basically. That's all it is. So they can have a plot. So the plot is like paper thin. It makes no sense. It's really silly. And at the end, oh god, I laughed. And I think I was more of laughing at this episode, not with it. At the end, where and they've resolved things really quickly, by the way. This is all of a sudden Kirk's like, oh, we're not slaves, blah, blah, blah. Like, the majority of this episode is just them, like, running from pterodactyls and things with very horrible sound effects that, like, hurt my ears. And a poorly written animation and just running around, which is very poorly animated. And they don't actually do anything until the very end, where they resolve the situation lightning fast, where Kirk's just like, oh, we're not slaves, we're your friends. And the computer's like, okay, all good, I'll just stop what I'm doing. And then so Kirk's like, okay, well, tell everyone to beam down, everything's safe now, we can have shore leave again. Which is ridiculous. Like, a couple seconds ago, the computer was trying to kill everyone, and just because he had a quick conversation with them, it was like, oh, it's all good now, we can all beam down this planet where there's this mad computer that 2 minutes ago wanted everyone dead. But hey, come down and have vacation. Anyway, the episode ends with a joke where, you know, these huge, like, dragon-like monsters, two-headed dragon monster was chasing Sulu and McCoy around, and after Kirk had his nice little talk with the computer, and they said, oh, everyone beam down to shore leave, and then they look at the screen, they see that McCoy and Sulu's having a picnic with the two-headed dragon, and, you know, Kirk or Spock or someone was like, oh, it looks like someone started the shore leave already. Ha, 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 ha. I did laugh. I had a good laugh at that. Again, I think I'm laughing at it, not with it, because that's so stupid. That is so dumb. Oh, there's a two-headed dragon monster going, roar, roar, like the horrible sound effects that hurt my ears. And then all of a sudden, we see the dragon monster sitting in a picnic. Like, they have a picnic blanket out with all this food out, and Sulu and McCoy just lying down, and the two-headed dragon sitting there going, roar, roar, on the other side of the picnic table. Oh my god, this episode sucks. Okay, so my rating for Once Upon a Planet out of 10 is a 2. Extremely poor. Now, I said I don't like Shore Leave. This episode's even worse. It's not surprising me because this animated series is, let's be fair, it's a lesser version of the original series. So whenever they try to do a sequel continuation off of something that was in the original series, it just comes off as a lesser version of it. And that's basically what this is. So anyway, let me get into the next episode, episode 10, Mudd's Passion, and this may surprise you to hear, but I think this episode was even worse. If you know me, I never liked Harry Mudd in the original series, Mudd's Women and Mudd's whatever, I Mudd was okay, to be fair, but I never liked Harry Mudd as a character. And so I was really not looking forward to watching animated series episode with him in it, and I was like, oh, maybe it won't be as bad as I think it will be, but it is. It was, if not worse. It's, oh my god. Okay, so they find Harry Mudd in the plant because they're looking for him because he has all these outstanding warrants or whatever, and they beam down to the plant with a bunch of miners, half of which are apes, but animated series, they can have be more creative with what people look at, whatever. But anyway, on the plant, Harry Mudd's like, oh, they don't recognize Federation law here, so you can't arrest me. I'm not really sure that's how that works. I think he could appeal to the local government to try to stop an extradition, through legal channels, but I don't think he could simply just tell Kirk, there's no Federation law here, so you can't arrest me. Kirk could just arrest him anyway and be like, well, take it up with the local government if they try to issue a order. Otherwise, I'm taking you. And why would the local government give a shit? But anyway, it's an animated series, so I know maybe you shouldn't overthink this. But here's the thing. Harry Mudd is on the planet trying to sell these love crystals to these miners. And he says basically, if you give it to someone, I think, no, you take the crystal and then you touch someone, the first person you touch falls in love with you. And I think that's how it works. That's how it works. Or do you give... No. I think he was even saying, no. That's how they do it later in the episode with Christine. But what they were saying, what Harry Mudd said, I thought, was you take it, drop it in the water, and then you touch them, and then they'll fall in love with you. And I'm sorry, this whole entire episode, I could not help but think of this as a date rape drug. Which is, they never, of course, mentioned sex in this episode because it's a kid's show, it's an animated show. But the whole entire time I'm watching, I could not help but think about that. I'm like, he's basically talking about a date rape drug. Even if you take the sexual component out of it, which it is a part of romance, so I would say it's unfair to take it out. But let's, for argument's sake, take it out of it and say it's just having someone deeply fall in love with another person by force. That's still a form. That's still similar. That is still a form of making someone do something against their will. So I would say it's a form of rape, even if there's no sexual and contact involved. And to be fair, I think this is something a lot of cartoons in the 70s and 80s did, because it was before, we had more of a modern mentality where, so I'm kind of looking at this through a more modern lens, but still, I don't know, I can't help but do it that way. And so that's what the whole episode's about, because they arrest Harry Mudd because Harry Mudd he was swindling the miners because he had some shape-shifting lizard pretending to be a woman, and Kirk exposed him, and the miners got all pissed, so Harry Mudd went with Kirk. But we find out that these crystals are real, and Harry Mudd even says, oh, they work? Oh, I'm surprised. And how can you not know that they work? I know they say that he just swindled them from someone else, but still, he had the possession. He was trying to sell them. You would think at the very least he would test them to make sure they would work, and it seems ridiculous that he would have them. And in fact, the way he acts in this episode, where his whole escape plan is dependent on the fact that they work. In fact, because he gives them to Christine, and he's sure that it's gonna make her fall in love with Spock, and she's gonna be too distracted, and he'll get away. In fact, when Spock doesn't immediately respond to her, he almost doesn't get away. Christine almost stops him from getting away. So it seems like his escape plan would have worked a hell of a lot more if he was dependent. And plus, like, he was able to get away in the first place because when Christine took the crystals, she got a little dizzy and sort of was all drugged up and out of it. So he knew they'd do something. Because otherwise, why the fuck would he be trying to use them to escape? But also, let's get into the fact that I don't buy for a second Christine's behavior in this episode. We know that she has a crush on Spock, but would she want to use an essential date rape drug to force him to love her? I don't think so. And the fact that Harry is able... In fact, would she even listen to Harry when she knows that he's a swindler, a criminal? And I don't like the two-dimensional one. I know this is a cartoon, but still, I just can't stand the two-dimensional way in which they portray her in this episode. And it gets utterly ridiculous. And again, I was laughing a lot at this episode, not with it. The way that... Spock is like, oh, I love her, Christine. And it's kind of similar to The Naked Time, to be fair, but it's much worse. And the way they just like, oh, and acting all crazy and whatever. And then, like, Scotty and Ress starts flirting with each other, but because, like, Harry Mudd drops the crystals and they get put into the air vent, and the air vent goes straight to the bridge, and everyone on the bridge, like, there were only 5 crystals, but apparently it's enough to affect like all 300 people on the ship, which makes no sense. And who do they I didn't even get to first let me talk about Scotty and Ress, because this was actually maybe the one thing about this episode I liked. I did think that was kind of funny, because I think the concept of Imress, who's the Catwoman, is kind of an interesting character, and I want to see them do more with her. So every time they actually do more with her, rather than just having her say "I, sir" or whatever, I'm interested. But here, it's just she's kind of just flirting with Scotty. But that's all it was. They were just kind of flirting with each other, and then all of a sudden they hated each other when the drug wore off, which is, of course, the big side effect of the drug. But let me get into this other thing about how the way these crystals work, as described by Harry Mudd, who didn't even know that they worked in the first place, But anyway, how he describes it, that if you touch someone of the opposite gender or opposite sex, that they will fall in love with you. But if you touch someone of the same sex, they'll be your best friend. So what about homosexuals? I mean, obviously, this is a cartoon in the 70s. They don't care about different sexual orientations, because everything's very heteronormalized in the 70s, especially when you're dealing with shows for kids. But I'm sorry, I'm looking at this in way too much adult and modern way, but I can't help it. Like, it's very heteronormalized, because was it gonna turn a gay person heterosexual? And what if a gay person wants to have someone else of the same sex fall in love with them? They're shit out of luck, because this drug only works and it makes them their best friend. I mean, it was such a convenient way to prevent, because there would be a lot of, hey, what if Kirk actually touched Spock and they started falling in love? And so they had to throw in this line to be like, no gay stuff here, it only works in opposite sex. That seemed to be the whole point of the line. Anyway, yeah, this whole episode is very, very, I'm sorry, I can't help look at it from a modern standpoint, because it's very cringeworthy. It's very disgusting, and I can't get over that from a modern perspective. I know this is like 70s, and it's supposed to be silly, and not supposed to take it too seriously, but I don't know. And plus the fact that I can't stand Harry Mudd. All the jokes with him do not land. And again, the one other part I laughed in this episode, where I was laughing at it, not with it, was when Kirk and Spock are trapped on the planet, and again we had these, badly drawn animated monsters going around going "Rrr! Rrr!" and scaring and trying to kill them. And Kirk tries to call the Enterprise to get beamed up, and when he does, you see two people dancing in the transporter room. Which I did laugh at that, not with it. Because that's really dumb. It's funny how this drug it makes people fall in love with each other, but it just makes them flirt and dance. Because it's a kid's show. Anyway, God damn it. So Kirk's solution is to give the drugs to the big monsters, and they just... I don't know what the hell happens because it's so poorly animated. I can't tell what's going on. I don't care. Anyway, I'm sick of talking about this episode. My rating for Mud's Passion out of 10 is a 1. The worst. This episode was horrible. Even if you take out all the cringe-worthy, sexual discrimination, date rape, drugs, analogies, and all that. Just take all that modern mentality out. It's not funny. It's poorly animated. I don't know what's going on. Harry Mudd is an annoying character who I cannot stand. This episode is just horrible. I think this is a very strong contender for the worst episode of the entire show. It's just bad. Bad. Anyway, there seems to be more bad episodes than good ones in the animated series, but there's a couple of good ones. Hopefully I'll get to some more soon. That's it for my video on Star Trek the Animated Series. Thank you so much for watching this. Again, thank you so much for supporting my channel. Very much appreciate it. And I'll see you guys next month for another installment where I cover the next 2 episodes of the animated series. Take care.